Choosing right over thousands of years of cultivation of African soil, as well as the forced maintenance of slavery's cash crops like rice in South Carolina, and the continued subservience that existed during sharecropping, the black farmer has long been important to black American foodways. If you lived in rural areas, you had a garden for sustenance farming at the very least, and you likely wanted to capitalize. The Colored Farmers Alliance had over 1 million members by 1891. As time went on and land was squeezed from black landowners, the number of black farmers who could compete with large-scale farms and mechanized agriculture dwindled. By 1920, 218,612, or 24% of the nation's farms, were black operated, but only 1% were actually owned by black people. For most of the 20th century, they found it close to impossible to secure loans and aid from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Additionally, between 1920 and 1997, black farmers lost approximately $326 billion in land from heir property rules, when an owner dies without a will in place. Every descendant of a farmer without a will got a cut of the land. Explained Archie Creech, greedy developers find one member of the family, perhaps someone who had long since left the land, living in a faraway state, and say, for that 1/40th a share, we'll give you $2,500. For that distant family member, a stranger cousin, as they are often called, with no connection to the land, this might seem like a no-brainer. But just like that, the rest of the family has lost control of the land. In 1995, the National Black Farmers Association was established by John Boyd, leading to a class action lawsuit, Pigford Vs Glickman, in 1997, alleging systemic discrimination by the USDA. At the center of the suit was North Carolina farmer Timothy Pigford, who was denied by the USDA multiple times the ability to buy the farm he worked as a tenant. With over 400 black plaintiffs joining the lawsuit, the government agreed to a $1 billion settlement in 1999. 40% of the 22,100 farmers applying for a $50,000 settlement were denied. Of the 173 farmers who filed for larger sums that would be litigated under hearing, only 18 won compensation. An additional 72,000 claims weren't reviewed.
While some applicants received a flat $50,000 tax-free payment, the vast majority never received a dime from the federal government. An overwhelming number of farmers were dubbed late filers by USDA when their applications trickled into office inboxes after a 180-day deadline. Tens of thousands of black farmers claim they did not receive proper notification of the settlement and that an independent USDA monitor failed to judge their applications on the merits of their claims. Government officials say they did more than enough to notify farmers, running ads in over 60 newspapers and airing 2 weeks of television commercials and radio announcements. But when Market to Market caught up with National Black Farmers President John Boyd at his group's annual conference in Dallas, he blasted that defense.
A lot of these people are not reading those publications. They'll say, hey, can you help me fill this out? They're not going to come up to you and tell you, man, I can't read and write.
In 2010, a second settlement for $1.25 billion was issued when it was reported that 60% of the black farmers had been denied. Black farmers are now less than 2% of the landowners in the United States and own less than 3 million acres. In the modern era, a number of black farming initiatives have launched to raise awareness about community gardens, black farming, and co-ops improving black businesses and health, known as black food sovereignty, which leads us to black grocery stores. Depending on how you define grocery store, there have been black-owned ones for years. In 1889, in the Curve neighborhood of Memphis, black residents had two choices for groceries, where items were weighed out and fetched by an attendant, and trust was pretty imperative. The two options were the white-owned one by William Barrett and the People's Grocery, co-owned by various black investors, including Ida B. Wells's friend Thomas Moss. The People's Grocery was so successful that on March 9, 1892, a lynch mob burned down the store and killed Thomas Moss and two others, accusing them of plotting against white people. This began Ida's anti-lynching crusade and demonstrated white people's inability to cope with black success. In the 20th century, grocery stores became more numerous with the advent of mass canning and prepackaged goods in the 20s, and the self-service model emerged after the 1917 creation of Piggly Wiggly in Memphis. Booker T. Washington's Negro Business League created the Colored Merchants Association to serve as a co-op for black grocers in 1927. There were 253 black-owned stores by 1930 that attempted to hold off major chain store dominance. And in the decades that followed, co-ops would be associated with communism. While a number of small groceries that teetered on convenience existed, like this building called the Little Booker Store in Charlotte, North Carolina's Washington Heights neighborhood, there were no big chains apart from Nation of Islam's Your Supermarket and very few bona fide supermarkets. In 1968, Reverend Thornton Jones opened the Ebony Food Market in Syracuse, New York. It was leased and franchised by PNC Food Markets and described as fairly successful, offering the regular PNC stuff along with 60 soul food items to entice both black and white customers. However, after starting a push for a co-op in 1970, something changed, wrote Jonathan Croyle. It could not overcome frequent vandalism and thefts. The store had been broken into 5 times in the months before its closure, and considerable expenses had been paid to fixing its windows. I wonder who did that and why. The store closed in 1972, lasting much shorter than another Syracuse black-owned grocery, William Bros Grocers, which opened in 1913 and lasted until 1944. In Detroit, James Hook started working at a Kroger in 1969 before buying it in 1984 and turning it into Metro Foodland. While it initially served as a crucial lifeline for Detroit's black middle class, the eventual arrival of outside competitors hurt sales, and like other black groceries, it had to fight off accusations of being dirty. A campaign to save the store began in 2012, which led to an increase in Nation of Islam customers. Reported the Detroit Metro Times, soon men with bow ties and impeccable manners were seen shopping the aisles. Hooks reciprocated by stocking the shelves with the nectars and organic foods members told him they wanted. He's even adding halal meat as well to meet the sudden surge in demand. Unfortunately, the push to save Metro Foodland was futile, and the company shuttered. Around the same time, a black farmer named Malik Yakini was trying to encourage his community to invest in a co-op, supplementing a business grant and federal funding. Said Tyrion Morrow in 2024, 7 years ago, Malik Yakini did this whole spiel about all his plans for building this grocery store. He was asking for people to become member owners of something that did not exist, that we had no concept of, but it was going to be a real thing that was going to be in the city. Thanks to over 14 years of hard work, he rallied 2,600 Michigan residents, mostly black, to put down a $200 membership for the Detroit People's Food Co-op.
Malik Yakini spoke with Fox 2 about that need a couple of years ago.
People are interested in what we can do ourselves on a community level to begin to at least provide some of the food that we consume.
And now it's becoming a reality. Construction on the site at Woodward Avenue in Euclid will start next week, and it's expected to take about a year. The new grocery store will also have incubator kitchens for local bakers and chefs, as well as banquet space.
In a neighborhood longing for access to nutritious foods, customers and staff couldn't contain their excitement as the doors finally opened Wednesday at Detroit People's Food Co-op.
We needed something healthy in our neighborhood instead of eating just anything.
Terry Jackson was among the first to check out the fresh produce, the bulk items, the deli, and the aisles of high-quality food that make up the 15,000 square foot grocery store.
Membership grants a vote in board representation and eligibility for profits during profitable years. Everything he said is what is, except for the member ownership. It's actually cheaper than he said they would be. Also in Detroit in 2023, a retired nurse named Sonia Green made headlines when she turned a liquor store into a grocery store in an attempt to reverse the ongoing harm of food deserts in her community.
A lot of the neighborhoods long ago used to have grocery stores, and to bring that back and give everyone access to it is important.
The 1,800 square foot building was once a liquor store.
Fresh fruits and vegetables, exactly what we need. Not someone saying they're going to do it, but doing it and getting it done. I love it.
More than just a grocery store, Linwood Fresh Market represents new opportunities for entrepreneurs across Detroit.